4 of the Nevim Code. Across every ancient culture, from the Americas to Mesopotamia, echoes a shared memory, a cataclysm so fast, so world shaping that it left permanent scars on our planet's surface, and then also in our collective memory. This was the Great Global Flood. In this video, I'm going to embark on an explicit forensic three-part journey, step by step, to investigate the before, during, and aftermath of the most devastating event in Earth's history. This presentation will uncover the undeniable signs and evidence of a world once overwhelmed by great waters. We are going to look at it from geological point of view to climatic perspective, as well as to biological um, perspective. We will also look at survivors of extinction, and then also to explore the judgment, survival, and transformation of that event. I'll be considering many other factors such as forensic science, ancient records, modern day discoveries to examine and to evaluate the event. I want to formally welcome you and thank you for joining me on this awesome journey into one of the most important events in human history, that is the Great Flood of Noah. I pray that the Lord God of hosts will enlighten you as you join me and grant you all the necessary understanding and wisdom and the intellectual capability to explore this event. Before I start, I want to confront a question that echoes through time from ancient rebellion to modern thought. And this is going to be part one of the three-part series where I'll be looking at the construction of the ark, and under it I'll be examining the material and then the engineering aspects of the ark. So the grand question is the design of the universe, and this is a question that demands an answer. So at first, this question may sound philosophical or even scientific, but it is actually a challenging and a thought-provoking question. It is actually, moreover, a direct assault on the legitimacy and authority of Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh, the creator of all things. This question was first raised not by man. If you have been following my previous study on the Navin Code Part 1, 2, and 3, where I touched on the Nephilim hybrids and what they did, their influence raised several questions about reality, including the creator of the universe, trying to question God's audacity and legitimacy as the creator of all. These hybrids, who are giant by extension, refused to accept the universe uh, as God's own making. They argued the existence of even God Himself, and they have always tried to obliviate God from the minds of people. But the truth cannot be hidden. You cannot hide God. And from time to time, there has been many evidence pointing to the fact that, yes, indeed, there exists a great architect of the universe. So we are going to explore now the origin of the universe in a short while. And we need to understand that the spirit of rebellion first whispered something in Eden to the man and the woman. and it was a serpent, very cunning, subtle, and reasoning, who questions God's commandment by asking the woman, "Did God really say?" And just by that statement, it generated an inquiry that sowed a seed of doubt in the minds of Adam and Eve, and that was transmitted across the human race. And though the serpent had not yet become Satan, as you know, if you're also following my study on demons, his reasoning pointed in that direction. This question, did God really say, opened the doors of doubt. It opens the path of opposition, the path of alternative truth, of counterfeit wisdom, of alternative knowledge. Mankind began to search what they call the new path, looking for enlightenment. It was later on, when the Nephilim perished in the flood, that their souls, called the disembodied spirits, known as the Shadim, which in English is the word demons, carried on their rebellion by whispering into the minds of people, sowing the seed of doubts, and doing so because they were denied eternal life and dominion over the earth as they had wished to. And this thing is covered under my previous series on the Navin Code, part 1, 2, 3. And because of their denial, they, they have now they've set themselves on a new mission, that is to infiltrate and to sow doubt and confusion in the thoughts of humanity. And this has been going on for a long time across uh, all generations, from the first man up until now. And the aim is to persuade mankind that God is not a creator and that the universe either always existed, that is, the universe is eternal, it came from eternity, or it has always been there, as we know in modern science, or it came into being on its own, which is another aspect of exploration under modern science, where it is believed the universe came into existence on its own. We have the Big Bang theory as a supporting theory, which is backing these ideas. But this is not; these ideas did not originate from humanity or from human thoughts themselves. They come from a far-reaching darker side. To prove that the universe was created and that God did so, we're going to explore some of the mega constructions carried out under the auspices of the Creator Himself. So, with this evidence, we are going to use it as a supporting statement to prove that God is the creator and architect of the universe. Uh, we all know the lie continues today in philosophies, in scientific theories, in cultural narratives, and that all these things are designed to erase the idea of a divine creator, trying to question his existence and his capabilities. Yet, throughout scripture, the argument concerning whether God created the universe or the universe came into existence on its own or the universe has always been there uh, is boldly reasserted by God's authorship. He is not only the creator, but also the architect of order, purpose, and design. Throughout the Bible, we see evidence of God uh, guiding mankind into mega constructions. So we're going to explore them from the exact specification of Noah's Ark, which forms part of the mega constructions engineered by God, guided by God, and also other constructions like the tabernacle, which was done in the wilderness, And also the temples described in Ezekiel and Revelations all point to God's hands seen in many areas of engineering, dealing with measurements, materials, and even structure. So um, these are not just some fictional or primitive blueprints, as we may describe it. These are divine designs. The construction of the Ark of Noah, the construction of the tabernacle and its vessels, and its structures connected to it, the construction of the temples in Ezekiel and Revelation, all suggest that there is a being who is able to design and who is able to use all sort of methods, mathematical, architectural, to inspire modern design and planning. And that if God created a universe, then he should be able to guide mankind in any construction that he desired to do. So let us now look at some of the various things that God created. Now we need to know that in the argument, as we try to argue that God is a great architect of the universe, we have to also know that God gave mankind the earth to inhabit, and that He, God, has retained the heavens for Himself. As it is written, the heavens belong to the Lord, but the earth has He given to mankind. So, yes, the earth belongs to us. This is our habitat. There's nowhere else human beings can inhabit. We may try to inhabit other planets, but we are actually suitably designed. We are well adapted to inhabit this world. And heaven is a place that He, God, has retained for Himself. We have to also know the flood was not just a judgment, it was a starting point, it was a reset, a divine response to corruption of creation and the challenge to God's own authority. So, as we explore the events of the flood before, during, and after, we will also address these ancient arguments whether God is the creator of the universe or the universe created itself, and we are going to get answers to all these things. So let us look at some of God's mega constructions that were undertaken throughout the scripture and throughout history. We have to know history is captured in scriptures, and the scriptures are actually history that happened many, many years ago. And if those history occurred, they should have evidence, and the evidence are all over us. We're going to be exploring them. So we need to look at the fact that the tabernacle was not the work of human creativity alone. It was built according to detailed instructions given by the Creator Himself. The design, measurement, materials, spatial divisions, and even the artistic patterns and impressions were all given by God. And the entire structure is a reflection of the mind of an intelligent being, a creator, a force of reason, an entity who understands geometry, order, proportion, and beauty. And not that he understands, but that he produced it. He created geometry, he created order, he created proportion, he created beauty, pattern, and designs. And so the tabernacle wasn't just a tent, it was a portable model of divine order, a testimony that the one who gave it dimension is the same one who architected the universe itself. If God did not create the universe, then how come He guided mankind by giving mankind all the specifications, including the materials, the measurement, the positioning, the arrangement of the tabernacle? This is never heard of in history. There is no deity that can be compared to such a feat. So, in the construction of the tabernacle, from the inner construction, from the inner sanctuary to the placement of the ark, talking about the arrangement, to the outer court and the finishing, the designs, the patterns, the arrangement, the numbers. They are all mathematically precise, with deep hidden message that needs to be decoded. So the tabernacle is not just an object of worship, it is actually a message, an intricate incorporation of data that has been actually webbed into a seeable structure, an interdimensional message that has been embroidered into a three-dimensional message. And that is highly remarkable of a being that created the universe. So, just like the creation of the world in Genesis, the tabernacle reveals a planned structure. It wasn't random, it wasn't chaotic, it was planned, it was intentional, it was deliberate, it was reasonable, it was intelligently done. And the tabernacle mimics the universe, the creation of the universe. So, even though the Nephilim and their spiritual offspring may argue otherwise, claiming the universe came into existence by itself, the tabernacle constructional plan, it is actually a tiny model of intelligent design. It mirrors the universe, the heavens and the earth, as the Bible puts it. That is just one verse, the universe. It's a microcosm of reality. It portrays the universe in a nutshell, that God is the one who made heaven and earth, and He is the one who gave Noah the instructions, all the details, all the planning, all the specification, the arrangement, the patterns, all of them given to humanity, line by line, word for word, step by step, as the blueprint for the construction. And in that particular plan, we see an undeniable proof that yes, Yodhe is not only the creator, is everything that we may think about. He is the architect of all reality. I mean, if he wasn't the creator, just look at the universe and the patterns and the constants that exist in the universe. We have the pi that exists across the universe. Okay, how would that be possible without an intelligent design? Just look at the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, which exists across humans, animals, plants, microorganisms, both living and non-living. You find it even in the Coriolis effect. You see it in the shape of the sun, the moon, the galaxies. We see constants appearing, all pointing to that to the fact that a God created the universe, and the same God incorporated these details in the construction of the tabernacle. Now let us go deeper by exploring the ark and the great flood, as it serves as the divine plan for the remaking of the earth. Now we need to know the great flood, it wasn't just a natural disaster, although that is the first impression. It was actually the end as well as the beginning of something new. It was deliberate, it was done by God Himself, as He stated, and I myself am bringing the great flood, I'm bringing the waters to flood the earth. It was meant to sweep the earth clean, to remake the earth according to His righteous plan. At the center of this cosmic judgment stood the ark. And we have to understand the ark wasn't built by someone's imagination. It wasn't Noah who just came out with the idea. He even didn't know that there was going to be a great flood. Uh, this ark actually followed exact specifications given by God to a human called Noah. Everything was planned by God, from the length to the width, the height, the compartments, the materials, even the waterproofing instructions all came from God. If God didn't create the universe, how did He know all these things? something that can be proven in modern science. Why did God give Noah such details? Because we have to know, just like the tabernacle, the ark was designed by the one who created the universe, the one who created life and knows how to preserve life, to make it a structure, both divine and physical, meant not only to preserve life, but then to reveal that the designer of life knows how to both destroy and also how to preserve, as it is with the nature of God. He creates and then he destroys. He gives life and he takes life. So, at a time when the earth was overrun by violence, corruption, and the Nephilim hybrids were having a field day with all forms of rebellion, and as they try to defy the order of creation, trying to insinuate and propagate the idea that God is not the creator of the world. Okay, um, God was also giving Noah the divine plan that will bring salvation to him and to his family, and that will actually usher in a new world and to bring an end to the physical inhabitation of the Nephilims. So, still on the Great Flood, one thing we need to know that the Lord, the Almighty God, declared a final word, and that is He's gonna purify the earth by destroying it with a great flood, and that Noah uh, was chosen because he was found to be human, more human, and was pure human, as you will discover from my previous presentations on the Nevim Code, Part 1, 2, and 3. Hence, he was chosen to construct the only way, the only way by which they can escape, and the only way by which they can be saved. That is the ark. So the ark wasn't just a symbol of salvation, it was also not just a symbol to prove that there is a creator, it was a symbol of obedience, design, and preservation. As the waters rose, everything outside the ark perished, including the Nephilims and their twisted legacy. But inside the ark, Noah and his family and all that were with him, because he followed the instructional plan, he received salvation. The flood waters was also a form of a great baptism of the earth, the washing away of rebellion and sin, and the preparation for a new beginning. As John the Baptist baptized people in preparation for the coming of the Lord, the Creator, Jesus Christ, so did the great flood usher in the coming of the new race, the people chosen by God, who also prepare ground for the emergence of the sons of God, the holy people, a subject I'll be exploring very soon. So, when we speak of the ark and the flood, we are not just talking about judgment. We have to know we are also looking at the divine plan to remake the earth, and a plan that is founded on justice, holiness, and divine precision. And just as the ark was built by faith and divine blueprint, so too must humanity in every generation build its future. Every nation, every people, every individual must build their future according to the Creator's instruction, because we are built to inhabit this world, this universe, which is ours. Our survival, our progress, our advancement is based on the Creator's manual that will guide us on how to inhabit this world and how to survive it. Now let's turn our focus to the purpose of the ark, which is very, very important, because the purpose of a thing determines its design. Understanding the purpose of the ark will enable us to know why it was designed that way. Uh, in order to fully comprehend the weight of God's command to Noah, as well as its detail, I'll be exploring it using the Septuagint version of the Bible. And the reason is because it is actually an ancient Greek translation of the Holy Scriptures. It is way older version of the Bible compared to the Masoretic text from which we got the modern translations of the Bible, like the King James, the New Living Translation, New World Translation. All those modern versions of the Bible that we use today were actually uh, gotten from the Masoretic text. But then the Septuagint version is an older version. It is way older than the Masoretic text. It's more accurate in detailed. Hence, I'll be relying mostly on it. I'll be depending on the Septuagint version for this study. So in Genesis 6 verse 17, over there, gopher wood, where to find it, how to cut it, how to transport, the tools to use. All these things went into the making of the ark. Squared, hewn, geometric. So this actually tells us that he's supposed to cut into beams or planks, not just to cut some rough logs for the construction. It goes on to talk about the fitting, the joining, the creation of joints, sudensis. It means to create a joint, not one joint, many joints or fittings or to bones. So this speaks of construction science, building technology, whereby you need to know how to create joints for woods, like it's done in metallurgy. This one in wood construction plan, in carpentry, joints are used for stability and for framing, and Noah was instructed to do that. And then he was supposed to do something. He was supposed to pitch it inside and outside with pitch, which is also bitumen. From the original Greek translation is the word asphaltosis, and that is where we get the word asphaltos, the modern day asphalt, a type of bitumen used for road construction, or tar, which is a waterproof sealant. It's a chemical and that is used as a sealant. It is still being used today, and Noah was instructed to use all these materials for construction. So, the materials used in this construction, most especially the waterproofing mechanism, depicts advanced material usage. Here we're talking about natural petroleum resin used for sealing ships, and this was done many years ago in ancient times, most evidently in Mesopotamian shipbuilding. So this wasn't a fictional event because the whole constructional detail depicts chemical awareness. This is chemistry for you. This is knowledge of chemistry, chemical science, or what we call chemical engineering, as you need all these materials for building a formidable uh, um, um, sailable machine for sailing. So the details provided are very profound. It says, "Thus you shall make it." God is telling Noah, this is how you shall actually do it. Now He's guiding Noah, giving him measurement. The length is supposed to be 300 cubits, width 50, height 30 cubits. Then He gives him the engineering insights, because we all know cubits traditionally was 18 inches or 45 centimeters. So here, these are the dimensions in modern measurements. If you use the SI units, we have length of the ship, which was 200 cubits, is equivalent to 135 meters or 450 feet in that particular regard. Now, this measurement, if you really understand modern cargo shipping ratio, you realize that the boat or the ship or the ark, it was built for maximum stability, most especially in rough waters, because this was in preparation of the Great Flood. And the ratio, even without having a video of how the Great Flood was in the days of Noah when it came on earth, the ratio, the mathematical measurement, the measurement given actually gives us an insight into how the Great Flood event occurred. Because this measurement, this length and width and height measurement given, they are used. Such measurements are used for building cargo ships, not for luxury ships. This is for cargo ships, which is actually built for actually sailing across rough waters. No, there are ships built for calm waters, and there are those built for rough waters. So the measurement, even though we are not there in the days of Noah to witness it, the measurement alone actually opens a window or transports us into the time of the Great Flood. It tells us, it gives us some evidence, it gives us uh, data, reliable evidence that the great waters of the flood were not calm. It was rough. It was very rough, and that is why the measurements were given. And you can actually prove this thing for yourself, as it has been done by South Korean and Dutch Shipping Institute through verifiable computation of this ratio, looking at the length, the width, and the height. Uh, it is found to be hydrodynamically optimal, which is fit for flotation and stability across rough waters. If you want to build a ship that can actually sail across rough waters, this should be the ratio. The length, the width, and the height ratio should be 30 is to 5 is to 3. And that's exactly the kind of ratio we have in the case of Noah's flood. Meaning the specification given by God, the measurement, the constructional detail given by God was given to Noah so that he can build a vessel that is actually hydrodynamically optimal for flotation and stability and for sailing across not warm, not calm waters, but rough waters. Because as we're about to explore, the flood event actually was a rough event. It wasn't a nice event. It wasn't an event you would want to actually be a part of. It wasn't a time you would wish to actually exist. Most especially if you're not one of the family members of Noah, you wouldn't want to be there. You didn't want to be alive in those days. You'll be happy that you are alive right now. So this is actually a detail where we are looking at data science, using the information to actually understand an event or to actually explore an uncharted territory. Then he goes on to say in the verse 16 of Genesis 6, he said, "You shall make a roof that is sturdy, a structured roof or covering meant to shed water." Because there has to be a mechanism to repel water or to prevent water from actually filling the inner hull of the ark. Because if water pours into the inner hull, it will actually increase the weight, and it will actually prevent the ark from being sailable. The ark might sink. So a roof was made so that water can actually be spilled over. And so you shall finish it to a cubit high above. Hence, the roof actually created a gap of 1 cubit, meant to allow ventilation, the exchange of gases, allowing fresh air in and still air out. As we will explore, this is supposed to be a cargo ship with many animals of different sizes and different species and humans, and they were supposed to go along with food supplies. So ventilation was key, and also a natural source of illumination, a kind of light, and definitely they had their own way of creating fire. So the 1 cubit gap of the roof allowed for for ventilation and for illumination. Then he said he's supposed to put a door in the side. So putting a door at the side makes it strategically suitable for loading and unloading, as the side will serve as a suitable entry point, as it is with today's modern ships. The doors are mostly on the side, and this will actually bring protection from direct wave impact, as the ship was actually 20 cubit wide. And he said, "You shall make it with a first, a second, and a third deck." So there were 3 decks there, and this was actually designed for special management, as there were 3 classes of goods to enter, or 3 classes of passengers to go in. We have the animals, we have humans, and then we also have the storage storage or supplies. Hence, a form of compartmentalization, okay, was actually required, which is still used in marine design for transporting goods across the world. Mostly, the heavy loads goes to the third deck, which is the lowest deck, and then the lighter ones will go on top of it, and the very light goods, those goods that are very very light in weight, will be on top. And the aim was to bring the center of gravity to the bottom so that the ship can actually attain stability. So compartmentalization is key when dealing with organisms of different sizes and behavioral patterns. So, in conclusion, uh, with regards to the construction of the ark, it is very, very clear that the ark was built based on divine engineering, as the Septuagint version reveals that the ark was mathematically structured, it was chemically sealed, and it was logically compartmentalized to make it optimal and suitable for usage across rough waters. The key insight is based on the data given to us according to maritime ratio for shipbuilding, suggests that the great waters of the flood were highly rough, as the construction of the ark was based on building a structure that can survive rough waters. So it tells you how rough the waters were. Squared beams were actually used to provide incredible strength and modularity. The joints and the fittings actually added to the integrity of the ship. The use of bitumen as sealant was included for waterproofing to prevent water from seeping into the ark, which could have compromised the integrity of the whole ark. The precise or the precision in measurement for proportionality also accounted for harmony. It provided some kind of harmony and balance. And the roof side entry and the triple deck actually allowed for space. And considering all this detail, it is highly evident that the same entity who created the universe is able to guide humanity into such a construction feat. This was a divine naval architecture. This wasn't a myth, something dictated by God, something that is provable today, something that is able to give us an insight into a historical event and supplying us with data that can be interpreted and decoded to give us a view or an idea of how the event went using the proportion given. All suggests that, yes, God, who created the universe, is the only one who could have done that. Yes, now that we have an idea about the constructional detail and mathematical proportionality of the ark, we will now turn our focus and look at the ark and its occupants. And according to scriptures, Noah was told, "Of every living thing of all flesh, you shall bring two of every sort into the ship, to keep them alive with you. So they shall be male and female," because it takes two opposing genders to reproduce. The verse 20 states, "Of the birds after their kind, of the livestock after their kind, of every creeping thing of the ground after its kind. And two of every sort shall come to you, so that you keep them alive." And the verse 21 states that, "Take with you of all food that is eaten," different kinds of food, "and then gather it yourself, and it will be for food for you and also for them," referring to the animals. So, in this particular uh, focus, we are going to look at the occupants of the ark and to look at it from the visibility point of view, and also to look at it logical application. And the most unfortunate part of the story connected, or the story regarding the Great Flood, is that when you read magazines and when you watch um, movies trying to depict the Great Ark, in many cases, they depict it using a picture with an overcrowded zoo boat staffed with giraffes, elephants, penguins, and kangaroos from every continent and climate. And they use this image to convey the message of the Great Flood, which is actually a misconception and an incorrect depiction of what really happened. Uh, and these images are not based on biblical details. It's not also historical, geologically, and also um, climatologically. It's not actually applicable. So we have to actually know the truth. We have to know who entered the ark, how many entered the ark, what did they weigh, the approximate weight in terms of size, and whether it was feasible, whether the ark could do what it said it's supposed to do according to the Bible, could the animal fit in, and those are some of the questions we need to ask. Consider the number of days the flood occurred. We have to also understand how the earth really looked like before the flood came. So let's start with the ark's capacity, that is according to the Septuagint version. We have to remember the ark's dimension. It was 300 cubits, 135 meters. It was also 22.5 meters, 13.5 meters. That will give it a volume, an approximate volume of 43,000 meter cube, or 1.552 million cubic feet. This is an equivalent of 522 standard railway livestock cars. So that is the measure of the resolve. That is what the Bible is saying. That is what God is telling us. Remember, the ark had 3 decks, lower, second, and third, and the space was wisely divided for animals, people, food, and supplies. So we should take all those things into consideration because we have the data here. We can interpret the data to get the details. So let's look at the analysis of the dimensions and the structure. Using common estimates of a cubit being 18 inches or 45.72 centimeters, this will be the modern conversion of the measurement. That's the length is 450 feet, and then the width 75, and giving us a height of 45. So the volume and the capacity of the ark is determined using the formula length times width times height, and with the biblical dimension given us in feet, we end with approximately 1.5 million 18,750 cubic feet. In meters, the measurement will be 45,155 cubic meters. So that's the volume you're looking at. What about the surface area? Because the ark consisted of 2 sides, roof, bottom, and the ends. So we can calculate the 2 sides together will give us 40,500 square feet, and then the roof and the bottom will together give us 6,750 square feet. So that leaves us with a total surface area of 114,750 square feet, which can be converted to modern metric units. That is 3,760 square meters. The roof and the bottom together will give us 6,270 square meters. The ends will give us 630 square meters. Hence, the total surface area for the ship and for the boat or the ark would have been 10,660 square meters. Now, in terms of the weight, uh, we we are given the detail here because the scripture stated that it was built using gopher wood, and we have the approximate density of all kinds of material, including gopher wood. So, using the modern day density of gopher wood, which is approximately around 33 or 33 pounds or 528 cubic kilogram per cubic meter. That is using modern day gopher wood. But we know the conditions before the ark, before the flood, and the conditions after the flood weren't the same. Hence, the gopher wood before the flood and the gopher wood of today, they might not be genetically similar. But then we are just using a modern day equivalent. So, the weight of the ark is calculated using a formula, volume times density. So, with the knowledge of the density and the calculation of the volume already at hand, we can now calculate the weight of the ark, which would have been approximately 50,118,750 pounds. And then, so by computing in modern day or in modern in metric units, that is in kilograms, the volume would have been 42,155 cubic meters with a density of 528 cubic kilogram per cubic meter. The entire weight of the ark would have been 22,275,840 kilogram. And so that will take us to the engineering and sailing capability with a ship that weight and size. We will have to evaluate its seaworthiness, and we can only do so by comparing it with modern day cargo ships. So, modern day cargo ships, like we have it today, for example, the Maersk Ace E class. Okay, it measures around 1,300 feet or 400 meters long and 180 feet or 55 meters wide and 100 feet or 30 meters deep. And it has a capacity of 18,000, which is actually a 20-foot equivalent units. If you put all those things side by side, in comparison, in terms of size, the ark would have been significantly smaller than modern cargo ships, and it's expected because you know our modern era is far. It's very it's actually advanced in engineering, yeah, compared to the material that was used in the building of the ark. Yes, but then the ark would have been huge. It was been very big for a time. The length was about one third of that of a large modern day cargo ship. What about capacity? The ark's volume was sufficient to house a vast number of animals and provision. With three decks, the total usable floor area was approximately 9,408 square meters. So, by compartmentalizing it, the instruction God actually added to the surface area. God actually optimized the usage of the space by increasing the capacity, by making the ship more accommodative for several passengers. So that added to the stability. The ark's wide box-like structure would have provided stability in turbulent water. Remember, it was very wide, 300 cubic feet. And modern ships use similar principles of wide beams for stability. So it fits in. It wasn't just a round or a square box. It was prismical. It was wider, just like modern day ships are built. And there is no doubt this ship would have actually sailed. In terms of space and provision, when we look at it carefully, humans, in terms of spacing, there were only eight humans entered it, and they would just needed a small quarter, just small area, because it wasn't actually a luxury ship. It was meant to be used for 365 days for their own survival. Hence, they didn't need a much space for them to feel comfortable. just a section of the deck would have been suitable. Humans would have lived in the upper deck around smaller animals like the birds, as Noah was able to release a bird from the upper deck. And what about the animals here? Remember, there are three decks, so that would have created additional ample space for animals with the potential for cages and enclosure for animals of various sizes. The larger ones would have gone to the lower deck, and the medium weighted animals with medium weight, would have been at the middle. The lighter ones will be on top, along with humans. And the aim was to bring the center of gravity to the bottom to provide the ship with stability. What about the provisions? Noah was instructed to gather all kinds of foods that was eaten in his days, and was supposed to do it for both the human family and the animal. And the animals that entered the ark were not all of the same size. They were of various sizes. They were crawling animals, flying animals, and then there were other larger beasts. So the average size of the animal would have been something that wouldn't be that big enough to consume a lot of food. In terms of feasibility, in terms of feeding, considering the diversity in sizes, yes, the ship would have, or the ark would have done what it's supposed to do. What about structural integrity and engineering capabilities? We have to note that the ark was actually waterproofed, since it was coated with pitch inside and outside. The ark was flat at the bottom because remember the deck was divided into three, so it was flat at the bottom to allow passengers to also live in that side of the ark. And the beams were wide. It was about 200 cubits wide, meant to provide stability. It had an opening for airflow, for ventilation, and also for illumination, for lightning. Structural integrity: the ark withstood the flood waters for a year, considering the proportionality of its length, height, and then width, which makes it suitable or pre-built for sailing rough waters, which is being done today. Its structural integrity cannot be undermined. The construction of the ark from gopher wood coated with pitch would have ensured its watertightness, thus making it very, very maritime friendly. The use of pitch was critical for waterproofing the vessel. The wood would have provided the necessary buoyancy and then the strength that is actually needed. So, the general comparison to other ships actually suggests the ark size and capacity uh, was, yes, actually smaller than modern day mega ships like Panamax cargo ship, which is 950 feet long, 106 feet wide, and 39 feet deep, all following a similar proportion. The ark's volume is equivalent to about 250 standard shipping containers. That is 20 feet long, 8 feet wide, 8 feet high. Considering the weight of these containers, made of metal, very heavy, if the ark's volume could actually accommodate 250 containers of modern times, considering also the passengers of the ark, there's no doubt the ark would have actually uh, uh, done what it's supposed to do. So, yes, the verse 22 of Genesis 6 states, thus Noah did, according to all that God commanded him. So he did. So Noah followed the direction. He used what he's supposed to use. He used the exact measurement. An ancient cargo ocean vessel, which was built to save life on Earth. And it was supposed to sail across the rough, great flood waters. Its size, capacity, structure all attest to his obedience to God and his covenant. Even by modern standards, the ark's design and construction, they are very impressive and demonstrating the ingenuity and the scale of ancient civilization. This actually points to a God who actually instructed mankind to build such a vessel. The same being who created the world. So let's see how many animals entered the ark. Now we have to do so by looking at the capacity for passengers and animals. The ship will have to accommodate these passengers. As the ark needed to house Noah's family and a pair of every kind of animal, by estimation, we are looking at about 8 people and 1,000 animals. In terms of the number of people, we are sure because we know there are eight. But in terms of the animals, their total numbers are not given. But by estimation, we are looking at as many as 1,000 animals of various sizes, some large and some small. And we're going to explore how we arrive at 1,000, which will serve as uh, the average maximum. Now, this from the Septuagint version, the ark wasn't a mythological boat. It was real, built based on divine precision. So Genesis 6:19 to 20 states, "Of all animals and of all the creeping things, according to their kinds, you shall bring into the ark, so that they may be preserved alive with you. Male and female they shall be." So let's see. Remember, they are supposed to preserve them, safeguard them, and that's the ark was a protective vessel. It wasn't. It was not all life. God, the ark was supposed to preserve life. And we all know, as God saw Noah as a righteous person, hence God instructed him to build the ark to separate the righteous from the unrighteous. And God also designed a plan to establish a covenant with him that's preserving mankind. So, who went in? We have clean and unclean. According to Genesis chapter 6 and chapter 7 in Leviticus, we know only terrestrial, land dwelling animals that are also air breathing animals with lungs. They are the ones who went in mostly. Uh, no sea creatures went into the ark because they would have survived the waters. Insects wouldn't have to go in because they can survive in debris. They produce eggs that can survive for more than a year. So, and their small size nature wouldn't actually pose a problem because insects are lightweight and very small. So, whether they enter the ark or not won't be a problem. Amphibians wouldn't have to go into the ark because some of these animals can survive on floating debris for a year long. They would have also gained access to food. Animals like crocodiles, animals like some of these snakes, serpents, would have survived the flood because they can actually swim. Some of these reptiles can swim underwater. They would have actually survived on dead floating animals or trees, and the animals would have served as a source of food for them. So most of the reptiles wouldn't have to necessarily be on the ark. Genesis 2 verse 7 verse 2 distinguishes between clean and unclean, and something that is well taught in Leviticus. It is well understood there if you want to know how to identify clean and unclean. And in terms of who went in and how many went in, 7 pairs of clean animals went into the ark. So 7 pairs and only 1 pair of clean animals. So based on Leviticus and Genesis details, we are looking at 700 to 1,000 kind, not individually counted animal. We are talking about a kind, as the Genesis 6 to and chapter 6 and chapter 7 indicated that Noah was supposed to take a male and a female, and it was designed that way, commanded that way to ensure reproduction. And a certain word was used, and that word is the word kinds, the same word used in Genesis chapter 1. And the word kind in the Septuagint means genus, from which we get the word genus. A genus refers to a group of organisms that are similar. They have a great deal of similarity, even though there are differences among them, but then they all share a common characteristics. So, an approximate number between 700 and 1,000 kinds of animals went into the ark. This includes ancestors of dogs, ancestors of cats, ancestors of horses, birds, reptiles, and livestock that went into the ark. Okay. And all these things went in with their reproductive diversity, all encoded within their kind. The post-flood diversification uh, will produce their modern forms as we have today. So you wouldn't need a leopard, a jaguar, and a cheetah to enter the ark. All you need is the ancestor of these three, and God instructed one. If they are clean, then God instructed 7 pairs of the jaguar, leopard, and the cheetah ancestor. And then, if it is unclean, it's just 1 pair that will actually enter. You can see the unclean animals were fewer in numbers, okay, uh, which was actually meant for a good reason, to ensure ecological balance. And then also there were more cleaner animals as they will be needed under Levitical um, worship, which was actually done in that way. It was all done by design in preparation for post-flood worship. And birds were also taken as they are also important in the ecosystem, as birds play crucial roles in pollination, seed dispersal, and pest control. And to the ark. What went into the ark weren't individual species. Actually, it was the genus of that species that went in. And that detail will be explained along the way. The pre-flood world was totally different geologically, atmospherically, and in terms of the ecosystem, the biosphere was totally different. The post-flood, which was shaped later on by the tectonic activities and the continental drifts and ice age effects, changed the biodiversity and animal distribution. So, many skeptics ask, how could Noah get penguins and polar bears into the ark? Okay, well, such a question wouldn't be asked if they had actually sat down to forensically analyze the data given by the Bible. Even by looking at the measurement, now we know the great waters weren't gentle, it was rough. How do we know? Just by the proportion, the mathematical proportions given to us. That data alone tells us the boat or the ark wasn't built for calm waters, it was built for rough, highly rough waters. Uh, something, if it wasn't done that way, Noah wouldn't have survived. And the fact that we are here and the evidence proves it that yes, the flood event occurred, suggests that yes, the ark was indeed built according to those proportions. And those proportions were needed for stability, for the ark to become optimally designed for sailing across rough waters. So, how will Noah bring in the penguins and the polar bears? Well, he didn't have to. Noah didn't have to go and get them. And there are two main reasons. One is that God brought the animals. So even if the world then was similar to our world, God knows how to do it. But that is not actually what happened. That won't be the answer. The answer is in the natural outlook of the world. Because God created the world naturally for us to inhabit in. So there's nothing spiritual about how the animals would have come in. And the simple reason is because what Noah brought in, okay, what came in were not the species that came in, it was the terrestrial progenitors. It was the genus that came into the ark, not the species. So from the genus, we can get all the species that we want. And what came in, they were adaptable, genetically rich species. Their genome was highly diverse. That is why we call it the genus. It was a genus of the modern day species that went into the ark, not the species. So no species went into the ark. It was just a genus. You can have many species under one genus, but you can't have many genus under one species. That will not work out. So what went into the ark was a genus. That means it reduced the number, the size, and the weight of animals that went into the ark, because we are looking at the kind, the genus. So what went in was adaptable, genetically rich in diversity, animals coming from different biosphere. So, in terms of logic, feasibility, and divine planning directed by God, yes, the ark was large enough, structurally advanced enough, and efficiently planned to house a maximum 1,000 genus of terrestrial land-dwelling creatures. Talking about animals that are 100% terrestrial, not aquatic. No aquatic animals entered in. Amphibians wouldn't have to go in. Mostly reptiles. Most of the amphibians are reptiles. Reptiles can survive. Their eggs alone can survive after 365 days on debris, on floating rocks, or maybe under certain caves. Their eggs would have survived. Many eggs, or you don't need all the eggs, just one egg would have survived. And the changes in temperature would have produced or turned some of the eggs into a male or female. Animals like turtle, which are mostly aquatic animals, wouldn't have to join the ark. Crocodiles wouldn't have to go into the ark. What about dolphins? Wouldn't have to go into the ark. Even anaconda, boa constrictors, most lizards and frogs wouldn't have to go into the ark, because these are semi-aquatic, they are amphibian. But then animals that are that breathe through lungs, that breathe through their nostril, that cannot survive under the ark. They would have to go in. And what went in once again, wearing the species. No species entered the ark. What entered the ark were the genus. It was the ancestor of modern day organism, very rich in diversity. So species wouldn't have to go in. What went in were clean and unclean in category, and then what went in were not older animals. Those that went in will have to wait for 365 days. Hence, it was the juvenile, the young ones that went in. So they were not that big in size. You don't need a mother elephant to go in. All you need is just a juvenile animal after it had weaned, or it had been weaned, after it had actually stopped depending on the mother. It can now live on its own and survive life in the wild. Yes, such animals would have brought into the ark. Animals with reproductive potential, animals that will be sexually mature after 365 days, small enough to enter the ark, lightweight enough not to make the ark unstable, small not to demand a lot of food, and also not to release a lot of waste. Such were the animals that went in. Those were the precision we are talking about. In terms of provision of food, water, and waste management, considering the passengers, yes, there is no doubt that the ark would have done the job. This wasn't a myth. This whole um both this whole event in general, it was divinely engineered. It was a solution to preserve life and to fulfill the creator's plan. This is to prove that yes, God created the universe, God created life. I mean, looking at the ingenuity, the wisdom, and the intelligence that went into the whole planning. uh, if we should forensically analyze the detail as I'm doing now, if anybody, if the critics were to do it that way, they would have actually realized how logically feasible the, the flood event was. So this wasn't someone's imagination or a fictional fairy tale, as they normally put it. This is based on precision. This is not about religion. It's not because somebody is doing it, because you're not saying it because somebody is a Christian. This is, you can actually see the details for themselves. The proportion alone dismisses any argument that the flash story was based on a fairy tale. I mean, that proportion suggests the great waters were very rough. It wasn't a world you would want to live in. That proportion alone is enough data to tell you the events really happened. Well, so that is the end of part one. Part two, I'll be looking at the pre-flood world, and then I'm gonna be looking at the conditions and composition of that world.